What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video, and today I want to do something a little bit different. I want to kind of show you guys how I like to do my water changes and just kind of give you a few tips along the way. Now, this is mainly for beginners, okay? Everybody has their own preference on how they like to do water changes, what they like to do, and how often they like to do them. So don't get triggered in the comments by what I like to do. Now, I like to do about a 30 to 50% water change on most of my tanks about every 2 weeks or so. Now, my flower warren, he's a pretty big fish, and he makes a pretty big mess in the tank, and his tank just requires a little bit more maintenance than my other tanks do. But on the other hand, my saltwater tank, I only do a water change on it about once every month or so, just because it doesn't require as much maintenance as my freshwater tanks do, unless there's something that just makes me have to do a water change on the tank. Now, why is a water change important? Well, you see, when you first set up a tank, it's important that you don't do a water change, because you can overdo water changes. Sometimes the tank just doesn't need that much water taken out, and you can just take way too much water out and actually throw things off by doing that. Now, something new I kind of started to do with my tanks is actually test the water really quickly before I do the water change. That way I can see where the pH and the ammonia is at, so that way it kind of tells me how much water that I need to take out. And then when I'm done with the water change, I like to test it again to see where that water change brought the levels up or down to. Now, what are the things that you need to do a water change? Well, it's very, very simple. Really, the only things that you need will be a bucket, a siphon, an algae pad, and dechlorinator. Those are the four main things that you need. Now, some other things that you can add into the water afterwards can be stuff like aquarium salt, Flourish, which is really good for plant growth, Kent Pro Clear, which helps clear up the tank a little bit faster, but those are, you know, kind of non-essential things. Now, this is my newest guppy tank that I set up here about a month or so ago, and I've just been letting this thing get all nasty and dirty for this video. So it's now ready for its first water change. We just have 4 guppies in here, and that's pretty much it. So the first thing I like to do is actually go around all 4 sides of the tank and get all the algae off, make the glass look really nice and clean. Now, if you're wondering why this sand is so much dirtier than this sand, that's because when I was actually setting this tank up, I took a little bit of the sand out of this guppy tank, which is much older, and put it in here. And of course, that sand being a lot older than this sand, it's going to be a lot dirtier. So that's why it looks like that compared to that. Now, another little tool that I like to use when scraping algae off the glass is a toothbrush, because you can get into some tight little nooks and crannies that you can't get to with the algae pad. So I'm now done scraping all the algae off the sides of the glass, and now we're ready to start siphoning the tank. Now, some people like to turn everything off. Personally, especially on smaller tanks like this, I just leave everything running because I'm not draining the tank completely. So you can usually leave your filter running, your heater, your light, and everything. It's really good to leave your light on, so that way you can see what the heck you're doing in the tank. So all you're going to do is set your bucket beside your tank or below it, because I'm sure your tank is not that low to the ground. Place the siphon into the tank. Now, some siphons have a thing on the tube that you can start pumping the water to get the suction going, but this one does not have that, and this is actually a more simpler way and easier way to get the suction going. All you do, take the end of the tube. No, you're not going to get water in your mouth, but you got to be really quickly when you do it. Put the tube under your shirt just like this. Suck in. That one almost got me, but now you got a suction going. It's not going to be very strong suction because I'm so level with the tank. It's a lot better to have your tank up here because the suction is usually a lot faster and easier. But as you can see, we got it going. Now, this tank is a little bit different because it has sand, and normally what you would do in a gravel tank is you would take the siphon and go all the way down to the bottom part of the tank. See, I don't want to mess this up because I have an Eco-Complete substrate up underneath the sand, but that's what you would do, and what it would do is actually start pulling everything out of the gravel, and you would get all the bad stuff out of the tank. But what I'm going to do with the sand is just, you know, really gently go around to every part of the surface and just really just suck up every little thing out of here that's on the surface of the sand. Like I said, I can't really go straight down because I'm going to pull that substrate on top of the sand, but you see kind of what I'm doing there. And like I said, what you would do if it was a tank that had gravel is you would just go straight down, and you would see all the really dirty water that it would pull up through the tube, and you would be getting all that unnecessary stuff out of the tank. So I'm now done siphoning, and like I said, all I basically did was just hit every part of the surface of the sand, and I drained it about halfway, right where we want to have it. So now we can worry about cleaning the filter. Now, you see all the plant debris that the filter has built up back there? I'm just going to grab that and get all that off of there, so that way we can, you know, helps strengthen the flow back. Now if you're someone who's been keeping fish for a while and are pretty good at doing water changes, and the only reason why you're watching this video is to find one little part of the video to get triggered at me in the comments for, well, this is probably that part of the video. I'm about to show you what I like to do when I clean my filter cartridges. This is something that I've learned that a lot of people have their own opinions about, but like I said, this is just my way of doing it. I don't like to change the filter cartridges that often unless they just have to be changed. I only do it about every 2 to 3 months or so. You can literally reuse that cartridge several times before you have to replace it, depending on what brand it is and how big of a cartridge it is. So this is an Aquarium quiet flow filter. This is actually meant for like 20 and 30 gallon tanks, but I just happen to have this filter laying around, so I put it on this 10 gallon. But all I'm going to do is just take the cover off just like that, and it's going to have one cartridge right back there, and that cartridge right there in the front. So I've got my bucket of water that I drained out of the tank, and now what I'm going to do is take the cartridge out of the filter. Now yes, this is the wrong type of cartridge for this filter, but it fits it, and I'm just going to take it out just like that, take it in the bucket of water, and then literally shake it off just like that. And as you can see, some of the carbon's coming out, but that's totally fine. And this cartridge isn't even that dirty. You can see the water is still fairly clear. So what I'm going to do, obviously since this is now reusable, I'm going to slide it right back in there, just like that. And now I'm going to take this one out. Not all filters have this little thing. I think it's only Aquariums that have that. But I'm going to take that, shake it off in the water, just like that. And as you can see, it's really not all that dirty. Holy cow, probably just triggered a bunch of people for doing that. But that's the way I do it, and it's worked for me. So yeah, I'm going to put the cover back on, and that's pretty much it for cleaning the filter. Now, like I said, really the only time that I like to change the cartridge is really only whenever it needs it. That may be after 1 month, or that may be after 3 or 4 months. It just really depends on how beaten up the filter pad is, and overall just how dirty it is. So now we're pretty much done with the water change. Now the only thing that we have to do is fill it back up. Now here's another thing that's probably going to trigger a few people. When I fill my tanks back up, I don't wait for that temperature of the new water to change to the temperature of the tank water. I've never had a problem with that. I try to make sure that it's as close to the temperature of the tank as possible, but if it's not, it's really not that big of a deal. Take your bucket of water right out the door and then fill it back up with new water. Doesn't really matter where you get the water from, as long as you dechlorinate it and put the right amount of dechlorinator in the water, you're totally fine. And you don't have to let the water sit. As soon as you dechlorinate it, it's literally dechlorinated within a few seconds. Now when you dump the water back in there, it's really important that you don't do it really fast, because then you're just going to mess up your scape, and it's not going to be a pretty sight. So what I like to do is let the water hit my hand as it's going into the tank, so that way it doesn't, you know, mess up the scape or anything. So now that we have the tank all filled back up, now you can add any of those additional chemicals like I mentioned earlier, like aquarium salt, which is really good to put in the tank about once a month or so after water changes. It really helps out with the fish's slime coat, keeps them really healthy, really good for gill function, and also kind of prevents ick as well. And since this tank does have live plants in it, I'm going to add a little bit of flourish. I add that in here about once a week, and it really helps out with the plant growth. And then you can also add a little bit of Kent Pro Clear. You don't want to add too much, and I really don't recommend adding it to tanks if they're really clear like this. Like this tank doesn't need any, but sometimes after you do a water change on a tank, it really stirs up everything in the tank, and by adding a little bit of Kent Pro Clear in there, it helps it clear up a little bit faster than having just the filter clearing it up. That's pretty much it though. That is pretty much how to do a quick and easy water change for beginners. Like I said, that's just my way of doing water changes. Of course, you do have to take out more water for bigger tanks, but just something like a 10 gallon, usually you're not even going to take out 5 gallons of water, because believe it or not, your substrate and your rocks and stuff that are in there, that takes up water space. So don't always think that you're going to take out a full 5 gallon bucket and it's going to drain a 10 gallon halfway. A lot of times if you take out a full 5 gallon bucket of water out of a 10 gallon tank, it drains it way past halfway, because you don't have 10 gallons of water actually in the tank. Oh, and another quick tip, this tank doesn't have a hood over it just because, of course, it's a hangover light, but if you do have a hood, which I'm assuming most of you guys do, a lot of times you'll notice that the tank is getting a little bit dim and it's just not as bright and really colorful as it once was. And a lot of time the reason behind that is because if you move your light over, you can actually see this algae build up right here, and there'll be like a film covering the glass. So what you want to do when you're doing a water change, or really any time that you see a bunch of it up there, take a paper towel or just a regular towel, whatever, and wipe it off. Then put your light back over it, and I guarantee you that it'll make the tank a lot brighter. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and if you learned something from the video, be sure to comment it down below, let me know what it was. And if you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like down below, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and that's going to be pretty much it for now. We're going to get back on our regular video schedule in the next video, which will be coming out Tuesday. I actually didn't have this video planned today. You guys know I was going to set up the guppy deck pond today, the outside guppy pond, but we had a lot of people over outside, and I figured this should just be a much easier and simpler video. So, next video we are setting up that guppy pond though. So, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys Tuesday. Peace!